Hey, something weird happened to me last night, and I need a little help wrapping my head around it. My wife Steph and I moved into this beautiful raised ranch home on 28 acres of forest in the Gatineau Hills yesterday, and I'm already regretting it. We got a lot unpacked and put away. I was even able to set up 4 wireless cameras around the outside of the house that sends a notification to my phone when there is motion, one for each side of the house. Unfortunately, the Ring camera won't be here until next week. Never needed to use any of this stuff being in the city, but I figured with all the wildlife around here, this would be a really good idea. I even set up the ringtone to be Carol Ann from Poltergeist saying "they're here" because I thought it'd be funny. After the long day, Steph and I were finally able to go to our new room and relax with a movie and cuddles. We were both exhausted and needed the break. We laid there and watched Scream 5 for about an hour before everything started. It was about 9 p.m., so it was pretty dark outside, especially with the cover of trees, but thank God for night vision. My phone goes off. I picked up the phone hoping to see maybe a deer or maybe even a bear since they are around these parts. I look at the camera that pinged, seeing nothing. Weird, but maybe it was a bird that flew off. I put the phone down and continued the movie. About 20 minutes later, alarm goes off again. I picked up my phone and again nothing there. This happened again 5 minutes later and again 5 minutes after that. It was then I decided to keep my phone in my hand and watch. I stared at my phone, trying to get a glimpse of what these cameras are picking up. Off in the tree line, I could see something moving behind a tree. I couldn't make it out though, it was just a mass bobbing out every so often.
They're here.
Something, what looked like a ball, was suddenly launched from where the mass hid, setting off the camera and falling out of frame. That was strange. And Steph agreed, but the thing isn't moving behind the tree anymore, so maybe it was a bear and went away. Can bears throw things? About 2 hours later, I was finally ready to turn in for the night. Steph had fallen asleep about 45 minutes earlier, and all was quiet with the cameras. Right when I had closed my eyes, the cameras went off.
They're here.
I grabbed the phone, groaned, and looked. It was the front camera this time. Again, nothing was there. Bang, bang, bang. Someone pounded on the door. I got up and rushed downstairs because the knocking was beginning to shake the house. Bang, bang, bang. I crept up to the violently beaten door to peer outside the people. Right before my eye hit the hole, the banging stopped and no one was there.
They're here.
My phone went off, making me jump off the ground. I looked at the phone just to see a white flowing garment leaving the frame. I opened the door and stepped outside. I was greeted with silence. It was as if the air itself had stopped. The pit of my stomach felt heavy, like a brick sat buried inside. The feeling was too much, so I went inside quickly, locking the door. I went around the house, making sure all the windows and doors were barred, turned off the lights, and went upstairs. Somehow my wife had just slept through it all and lay peacefully oblivious to the world. I sat there and pondered if I should maybe call the police, but decided against it, thinking worst, it's just some neighborhood kids knowing we just moved in. I laid down, but sleep had eluded me for a few hours, as I tossed and turned to await the terror to continue. I ended up falling asleep, but that only lasted 45 minutes when I heard it again.
They're here.
I looked at my phone, 3 a.m. Clicking it on the camera came into view. A lone girl with long flowing hair and a white gown stood on my back lawn. Her head was down so I could not see her face, and she just stood there. I sat there for a minute just watching, making sure I wasn't hallucinating from my lack of sleep. I ended up waking Steph up to show her and make sure I wasn't going crazy. Yeah, she is definitely there. She may need help. We should really go down, she said. I agreed and we headed downstairs. My phone was in my hand as I periodically checked to make sure she was still there until we reached the back door. I opened the door slowly and shouted, "Are you okay over there?" She gave no response, so I headed outside. I walked slowly, asking her if I needed to call the police or if she needed to come inside, as Steph stayed back in case she needed to grab the first aid kit. As I got within 10 feet of her, she looked up. Her hair parted from her face, revealing a white mask. Blood-red droplets painted on resembling tears fell from the eye holes. I was so thrown off by the mask, I almost missed her dropping a knife into her hand, concealed by the gown. She ran towards me and lunged, screaming like a wild animal. The knife came out, slicing the inside of my arm. Blood squirted out, splashing her dress. I moved to the side, throwing my arms out and shoving her down so she rolled away and I had time to run. I ran, hearing her get up, and her feet pound the grass made me run faster. I made it into the door, slamming it just in time, locking it. Steph grabbed my arm, asking what the hell just happened and who the hell was that. We quickly ran to the kitchen to clean up the cut fast, while the psychotic woman banged on the door with the knife.
They're here. They're here. They're here.
As Steph grabbed the first aid kit, I looked at my phone. More people were walking into the camera. They were all wearing white flowing clothes, and the ones whose faces I could see donned weird white masks. I grabbed Steph and raced upstairs without a word. Now they were banging on the front door and windows all around the house, trying to get in. We ran to our room where I locked our door. I toppled our dresser, barricading us in. I ran to the window and looked outside. About 5 people were standing under, looking up, knowing where we were. I took out my phone and dialed 911. It rang while Steph bandaged my arm the best she could, but I needed stitches. 911, what is your emergency? The operator asked. I yelled into the phone, explaining the situation, asking for the police, and fast. She told me they were 30 men out and to hold tight in a secured place. My phone continued to vibrate as more and more came out of the woods. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed and handed Steph the knife I kept in my nightstand while the banging continued outside. A crash came from downstairs as they breached into the house. I could hear them shuffling downstairs, piling in. I held Steph close. We whispered our love for each other as the stairs creaked as they ascended them. We knew this was the end. If it was 1 or 2, then maybe I would have had a fighting chance, but there had to be at least 12, and I knew I wouldn't be able to fight my way out. They reached our door. Bang, bang, bang. There was a rhythmic pounding as they tried to get in, then metal scraping as they began to stab the door. A knife pierced through, shining a beam of light from the hallway. I kissed Steph one last time, closing my eyes as I held her as close as I could. The pounding stopped suddenly. No noise, no shuffling, nothing. I knew it was too good to be true, so I just waited for the shoe to drop. We sat there waiting for what seemed like an eternity, but in actuality, it was about 7 minutes of silence. Blue and red lights flashed against my eyelids, which made me open them. The cop shouted out hello from downstairs. We cautiously got up to go to the door, pushing the dresser out of the way and opening the door. The only thing out of place upstairs was the single knife hole in the door. I yelled at the cop that we were coming down. As we made our way down, again we realized nothing was out of place. As we reached the police officer, he introduced himself as Sergeant Bachman and told us about the door being open, which is how he got in. After we explained the events of the night, I went to pull up the security footage of the event to show him. File corrupted was all that displayed. All the night's events were gone. As we looked around, the only evidence that anything happened was the knife hole, my arm, and our word. The police say they will have extra patrols in the area in case anything happens, but we have decided to stay in a motel, not knowing what to do. That is where I am writing this now. What could it have been? People playing a prank? A cult? Ghosts? Aliens? I just don't know. I am at a loss here. How does that many people just show up and leave without a trace?